Hello, everyone, and welcome to our weekly discussion series that's hosted by the Chaldean Cultural Center in collaboration with U of M Detroit Center, Unique Voices in Films, and CMN TV. I'm your host, Wiam Nemu, and my guest today is Gethen Christine Morris. Hi, Gethen.
Hi, William.
Gethen is talented in many ways, but she's also a friend of mine. And she has, for 27 years, been a musician with an emphasis in performance and composition. She professionally trained in percussion and voice through a variety of groups such as college band, choir, orchestra, symphony, jazz. She taught private music lessons and she started her own business, Gethen Christine Music, to publish her first feature film song titled Off This Ground, for the independent feature film Pomegranate. Currently, she focuses on composing sacred healing music designed to calm the nervous system, expand breath awareness, and uplift the spirit. Oh, that sounds so nice, Gethen. Don't we all need that, right?
Yes. Thank you so much, William, for the introduction. And thank you for asking me to be a part of this very special show. So thank you to all of the groups involved.
Thank you. And I invited you. I've been wanting to invite you for a while because you're a non-Chaldean who I
Yes.
think learned a great deal about our community through the feature film Pomegranate. Well, you learn about the Iraqi community in general through reading a lot of books, and
Yes.
I think sometimes this is the best way for us to know other cultures and interact with other cultures. A lot of times our work is involved with one organization with another educational formats. But
Yeah.
I think at the heart of everything is really getting to know people through more intimate relationships and friendships. So before I get into that, though, tell us a little bit about your background and how your music career began.
Yes, thank you. I agree with everything you just said. And but as far as my music background goes, music has always been a part of my life from I was a very little girl playing piano by ear, and I had just a very natural take to it. And when I was 10, I started to study violin, and then it led me into keyboard and piano and drums and guitar and voice and so many other instruments, basically anything that I could get my hands on, except trumpets and flutes because I could just not get that down. But anyways, and I took that throughout all of my education. So no matter what my focus was in any school setting, I was wanting to perform and be a part and to be a part of any musical group I could be. So, as a solo artist or in all of the group settings, as I traveled around the country and in the many places that I visited and been, I am always seeking that opportunity to perform with others and to express myself through music as well. And that's basically how, I mean, it started. It's just part of who I am. And it only really took a back seat when I focused and shifted my focus into developing a foundation in my other passions. And then essentially it brought me full circle into sound healing and the science of music. And so it took a very much a deeper focus and intent with my career and how I could weave it into the healing that I want to bring out to the world. So, yeah.
So, and by the way, you did all of this even after you got married. You have two young children, a 4-year-old and a 2-year-old. So you have your hands full, but you kept your commitment. And you have invested a lot in yourself. We met through the Lindsay Andrews School, and her teachings have been very transformational for both of us, as we
Yes.
have discussed so many times. And part of I think it's really interesting. I'm thinking many of her teachings, but the thing that's coming to mind right now is of being supportive um, towards one another as humans, and especially as for women to be supportive of each other. So this is how it felt, the relationship here when we were trying to launch Pomegranate, which is the first Iraqi American feature film. And it
Yes.
has to do with an Iraqi Muslim family living across the street of a Chaldean Christian Iraqi family and the dynamics. And there was a lot of humor in that. But before you got to read the script, or actually when you first met me, had you heard anything about Chaldeans or known anything about Chaldeans before that?
No, and it was embarrassing. I had never even heard the word. And when you said it a few times, I was like, okay, I have to try and figure out, first of all, what you were saying and how to spell it. I was going to Google it, but I could not figure it out. And I was like, I'm smart. I had no reference or frame of reference for that. So,
Yeah, and I would not be surprised. We had not too long ago, I had read an article in National Geographic that basically considered our community dead. I think this was before 2014. Sadly enough, that the 2014, despite what happened with ISIS, but it also brought forth the community forward that while there's a Christian Iraqi community, the Chaldeans and the Assyrians that still exist, they speak the Aramaic language, and
yes.
all of this it seemed like we were part of history, but the dynamics that happened, whether it was through Lynn's school or my relationship with teachings with you, because I was your mentor for a while, quite a while. And I think the dynamics that happen is realizing how important our ancient teachings are. The deeper I look into the ancient teachings of ancient Mesopotamia, I realize like these are embedded in so many different cultures. Sometimes we think only certain cultures have that privilege of tapping into, and it really isn't. It's like this is available for all of us, but that's one of the things that through the school I was able to tap into. And then I appreciate the fact that I was able to share that with you as a non-Chaldean,
Yeah.
and you were very receptive and just a really great listener to kind of try to understand, because I sensed that you felt the value in that.
Absolutely. And really, it is so important when you look at all of the world in preserving these cultures that we may have never heard of. We have no idea about their history, but they're there. They're not just in history, they're very much still present. And they want nothing but love and light for the world. And they don't want war and they don't want any conflict. And it is so important to learn of them through the awareness of conversations and friendships with other people from around the world, and to really preserve those cultures that ultimately are keeping and holding that peace, that sense of harmony, and that we can build more bridges between people who like the two worlds. I had no idea about Chaldeans. And at the same time that I was learning about that from you, my sister-in-law and brother-in-law were moving from back from Hawaii to Colorado. And then I learned my brother-in-law is Chaldean and his whole family. And he had a very similar story about being a refugee and having to flee from Iraq when he was a very young boy and with his family. And similar to yours, you were only 8 when you left Baghdad. And I learned very intimately, and I had no idea that Chaldeans were very much a part of my life now, because I definitely consider you family and he is family.
Wow, this is such a small world, right? Yesterday, I had the honor to attend International Mother Language Day at Oakland University. We were a part of this event. It was such a beautiful event where people from different backgrounds talked about how it is to be part of an indigenous community or knowing other languages, and it really felt nice how they, because we come and we have a lot of issues, and we have a cultural shock, and also we feel as our language is not necessarily for our first language, and so but then they were emphasizing the importance of knowing so many several other languages. And anyways, by the end of it, I just felt, oh yeah, this is really cool that we know this much, and it's okay if we mess up at certain times. But there was so much compassion. um, there was so much compassion, and I think this is what we find in a lot of people, that unfortunately, we discussed this as well. Sometimes, like the Western communities are given a bad rap, even though they try to create. I know that there are people that are prejudiced against that or stereotype, but then all these beautiful people, such as what Oakland University did yesterday, that event, which was actually the third year, this is the first that we got involved. And then people like yourself, what you try to do, and even the people who really uplifted the film Pomegranate.
Oh,
These
yeah. I mean,
are
pomegranate, the story itself. I'm sorry. Yeah.
yeah, but people try, that kind of compassion for indigenous people, for people who come from other cultures, really exists here, and this is how we are able to express and succeed in many ways. And then, so I was going to ask you that, you got involved with Pomegranate, but you started assisting early on, even before your music got involved or anything like that. And I wanted to know, what was the reason that you decided that you wanted to get involved, and how did you feel about the whole project as a whole?
Oh my gosh. Thank you so much for all the many blessings that you brought into my life, and especially sharing the story of Pomegranate, because I know that this was a long time coming. This had been at least a decade in the making and editing, and it really came and derived from personal experiences, and it shone through like a beacon of light. I have never visited Baghdad or Iraq. I'm not Chaldean Muslim. I'm not an immigrant. I'm not Iraqi. And yet, this story was so profound and is so profound that I am able to relate with all of these characters, especially Niran, the main character, and then her great influence of Inhedwana and the deep poetry and the deep influence that she's had on humanity as a whole. And that being said, as soon as I read it, I was like, oh, this has to be out there for as many people to hear and see and be a part of as possible, because it is profoundly positive and humorous when it's defying all these cultural barriers and stereotypes, and it depicts the beautiful Iraqi and Chaldean community in such a positive and beautiful light. And that really spoke to me. And I felt like I was there visiting for like a while, being in Little Baghdad or Sterling Heights. I was like, wow, okay, I've been there.
Yeah, I think you have. I think after all the conversations and all the work that you did energetically, visit Sterling Heights for sure.
Yeah.
I really appreciate you saying that. Like, I believe, and just I think many people, artists, of course, as a wordsmith, we believe that stories matter. They have an influence.
Oh, yeah.
Um, our stories have been depicted in mostly negative ways,
Yes.
and this was an opportunity to show something that had um, a lot of humor. The humor came just from a lot of heart. There was a lot
Yeah.
of heart and authenticity, but
Yeah.
there's also a lot of serious issues that in the Middle East we tend to look away from. And for me, this is why, unfortunately, some of the situations that get cycled over and over again continue because of us not looking at them, not facing some of our own, what we call darkness, some of our own issues. And I think that in this story, that's what we try to bring out. But
Mhm.
the fact that, yes, it is introducing a community to a large audience in a way that they've never seen before because we haven't been given that spotlight.
Right.
Um, and film media is so important. This
And
is
it
how
takes
you get
a
a story
lot of
made.
courage.
It's it takes a lot of courage to say these stories, and then it's what a way to, rather than destroying, to get for us to change the narrative about the Middle Eastern community, Iraqis, Chaldeans, whoever it is. What a way to change narratives through storytelling, through
Yes.
the pen, through a community. I mean, I can count the people that were involved in this film. Like, it's got to be at least 100 that put their finger on it to lift it up, right? Including yourself, of course.
Yeah.
Um, that to change that perspective. to try to change the narratives, to empower people through storytelling than it is to use destruction. And I was in a meeting with the other day with a group of women who, interestingly, when I was saying, yeah, this is so important, especially for Middle Eastern women, this story, and then they said, no, this was also for all women. And I thought, wow, it reminds me of that my first novel that I read was Gone with the Wind. I always tell I was 9 years old and I read Gone with the Wind, and I'm like, oh yeah, I can really relate to Scarlett. Like, here's this 9-year-old relating to a woman like twice her age, and also from a different world, speaks a different, different culture. But that's what storytelling does, is that you end up
Yeah.
feeling the humanity of what it is to be in that community, in that story.
Oh,
So
yeah.
and I thank you for helping move it forward, because as you know, I don't know how many scripts I forgot,
A
the
lot, 40 at least.
oh no, but I'm saying, like, there's so many scripts that don't make it to film. There's like,
Oh,
I don't know how
yeah.
many thousands of yeah, and you're right, there was like 40 revisions. I forgot about that part. But there's like thousands of of scripts don't make it into a film. And I always say, I am grateful for the people. It takes community, it takes teamwork to make things happen, and you were part of that. So I really appreciate it. And
Well, thank you. And just the heart of the humanity, I think that's why you had so many and you attracted so many amazing, incredible professionals to this project, because it does speak on the heart of humanity in such strong levels that all these people, and there were a lot of people from the Iraqi and Chaldean and Muslim communities involved, but then there were also a lot of non people that were not part of the community involved, and that they all loved it and believed in it so much. They're like, yes, this has to be out there in the world. And look at its success already, just touring films over across the country and the world. It's incredible, and it will be definitely seen and heard by millions, and I'm so honored to be part of it.
thank you, thank you. And you know what? And it's that kind of energy. If we can continue moving forward, I think also understanding, like, we there are certain groups that are minorities that don't really have the type of platform that other minorities have, and I recognize that. And the team that was helping make this happen, they recognize that, and we said, look, we're a minority group that is not heard. We are a large minority group that just seems like we don't have that focus in a positive way, and there's always the negative that's just highlighted. But anyway,
It's a catalyst for a
it's a
lot of minority and indigenous groups to come forward.
so you've read quite a few books that also helped make you familiar with the community, and one which was the Oneida Man. And I also wrote that it was my conversation with my Native American friend. It was just such a special relationship, because friendships also with regards to Indigenous people is like different. We recognize that this world we're in is temporary, and when we make decisions and when we have conversations, we always look to the future. We remember our ancestors, and we remember that we want to leave something beautiful behind.
Yeah.
And when we, even in a conversation, what are we leaving behind? Why is this interview? Why are you putting your half hour of time, you know, away from your kids? I'm sure you have a billion and one things to do. Why did I invite you? And why are you here? And it is because the messages that we are sharing, we are putting, as you believe in this, I'm sure that it's like the sounds that we're putting into this earth, our interview, what's going out there, including like your music, it's bringing a lot of healing. It's bringing a lot of shifting, making some shifts, regardless of how many people watch or don't watch. It's what we're putting out there, and we're putting something good to try to outweigh all those negative things, right? And doing
Absolutely.
something is better than nothing about that.
The
Um,
Oneida Man is such a powerful and very well executed book. Thank you, Liam, for sharing it with us, because reading the conversations between you and this beautiful man, it is testimony how two people coming from two indigenous minority groups can come together with seemingly a lot of differences between religious beliefs, cultural beliefs, lifestyles, and it doesn't matter, because the respect and the open mindedness that was approached with your connection with each other is the way that all of those barriers kind of dissolve, and then we can just talk openly about differences in a way that's inquisitive and curious and really provokes those meaningful, those life meaningful questions, the things we're all asking, the things we're all connecting to in the world over. And there were a lot of similarities between the detriments of both cultures and the hardships that both the Chaldeans and the Native American tribes have endured, to where a lot of them are almost extinct. Some of them are definitely, and the efforts that it takes to preserve those cultures is absolutely what the Chaldean Cultural Center is doing, what you are doing by writing these stories and sharing these stories, and what the Oneida man was doing by having that friendship with you. And he recognized it too. And so that was, it's a very profound and moving book. Thank you.
Thank you for sharing that. Yeah, when I first, when our friendship started, by the way, like I had no idea, of course, this was like over 30 years ago. So I wasn't thinking like, oh, we have all these similarities. And over time, I realized like, wait a minute, there's something going on here. Like, why did this person come into my life? All we do is just talk. Well, actually, and I was, he was doing most of the talking because I felt like I needed to listen, but it was resonating something in me. And what it was resonating is that similarity that
Mm-hmm.
Chaldeans, indigenous people such as Chaldeans, Assyrians, um, others, the Syriacs, Mandeans, the Yazidis, there's a lot of communities from ancient
Mm-hmm.
Mesopotamia who have gone through similar ways where they feel like they had their own language, they had their own, what you would call tribes. And
Mm-hmm.
those were little by little really started, their numbers were minimized and they had to be scattered around the world. And yesterday at the event, at Oakland University event, I met with somebody from the Cherokee tribe, a young man who was also sharing his community stories. And
Mm-hmm.
when I went to his table, and I said, I had a teacher who was from the Cherokee tribe, Chip. He was from the Cherokee. He's since passed away. And I said, I'd love like for Native American Heritage Month to connect with you. We used to do that, this program where every month we were honoring a certain community. We've just been a little bit more busy this year because we're moving. We're moving. So it's hard to try to, I love that when every month we were doing that. So we're trying to get back into the swing of things. So I'm hoping to be, and he was interested. But I said, he was telling me about his community, and I'm telling you, it sounded exactly, if you were just to remove the word Cherokee or any other Native American tribe from that description, you would feel like you're talking about the Chaldeans, the Assyrians, and all these other indigenous groups.
Mm-hmm.
So I highly recommend for people to to get to know that I think we talked about this too, that there are so many other communities that are expressed in books and have had similar experiences if they want to tap into or learn about. But we also, one time, I love this conversation that we had, that at the end of the day, we all are somehow indigenous to some land. Like this is not special to any community. So yes, you're considered white, I guess. I mean, I'm
Right.
considered white too. And so I mean, you would not know, we're not, but we all have that connection because the universe and the higher spirit encompasses all of us. You've
Mhm.
shared that with me. You've shared really words of wisdom with me before about that, and I wanted to see, the opportunity for you to express it yourself.
Oh,
Um,
absolutely. when we come down to it, we're all human and we all come from somewhere other than this place. We all started from somewhere, and we can go really deep into it and we can say, yeah, we're really from the stars. And we can really, we're more than just these humans that identify with geographies and locations and cultures. We are spirit. We are definitely more than just the physical part of how we compartmentalize everything. And it is something that through music, through writing, through the fine arts, it really gives people a really great creative way to express the humanity where people from everywhere can relate to, especially when we drop our defenses, when people who, even though they might be afraid and they might be completely ignorant like I was to the Chaldean community, I was not in like an aggressive stance about it. I really wanted to learn with open arms and an open heart, because I know someone personally, and you're such a loving person. And so there was nothing in my brain that was like, oh, well, I can't get to know these people from these places. That's just never been part of who I am. When I write music, it's definitely tapping into the emotional parts of those human aspects of ourselves and being able to just put it out there for people to relate with, whether they've been through that kind of journey or not. It is just connecting in that oneness, in the spirit that encompasses everything, like you just said.
And how do you juggle all of that, Gethin? I know you're very prolific in your work. You have a lot going on, including, I think, don't you also teach yoga or
Like,
you?
yes,
Yes,
yeah,
you have.
I'm doing yoga, and I'm launching a retreat business.
Yeah, how can I don't want to forget this. You have a yoga online YouTube channel. What is that if people want to connect to you?
They can actually use my name at Gethen Christine Morris, and it's my business website is joyyoga.love, and it's JOYOGA, so one Y, joy yoga. Love. And really, I'm starting in-person and virtual retreats and incorporating the music and meditation and the yoga and all of the healing modalities that I've been really drawn to, and they're just blended together, the passions. And that's really how I do it. I mean, my family is my passion with my children. I know you know all about this. And
This is what I love about you, by the way. Like, no matter what, at the end of the day, you would say there would be issues or challenges whether it was your career or whatever it was, and you said you always put your family first. You always put your children first. And I gotta tell you, I mean, I really admire that about you, because I'm like that. I mean, regardless, people are like, oh, you've done all this, but I always put my family first. Maybe that's the answer.
I really think it is.
That's the answer.
How do you juggle it? You prioritize. They're really little right now. It's full on, hands on, all of the attention and playtime. There's not a lot of sleep. There's not a lot of sanity, and we do our best. And as they get older, your kids are a little older now. There's a little more freedom, but you get so used to juggling all the things at once, and then I'm just looking forward to the time where you're just like coasting. You're not coasting because you're doing all of it, but you've had that training when they're just little babies, and you're just like, I'm a professional mom, and adjusting the camera while you're breastfeeding, or putting the mute button on because they start screaming about a food. I don't know.
It's okay. I still have to do the mute button, even though my kids are older.
Yeah. And I'm loud too. So I mean, and that was also another thing too. I wanted to mention with your story of pomegranate. I felt like I was like, I'm totally one of these people. I'm family. I am rambunctious and vocal and loud, and that the mom, oh my gosh, she is just like, she's out of this world amazing. I just love her character. And yeah, you just did
Yeah,
such a
at
great
the end of the day, I can watch any movies. Yesterday, I watched a movie about this woman who she works in corporate. I forgot the name of it, but I was so engrossed in the story. But she works in corporate, and she decides she wants to be an opera singer. She's from the U.S., living in London, and she goes
yeah,
to
yeah.
train for that. It was
Falling for
amazing.
Figaro. I just watched it.
I just watched it too. And you know what? I don't need to be from London. I don't need to be her. I don't need. the story was the heart of the spirit, and I at the end of the day, I think it's beautiful that we honor our heritage, but
Yes.
also realize that there's this human aspect of ourselves that
Yeah.
if we make that as the main connection, we can connect to anybody. there's no there's no walls between humans. We have borders, but we don't have borders in our hearts if we open up wide enough. And so this story has really, like, it really inspired me. Stories like Naiad, I think it's called, where the woman in her 60s,
Oh, yeah.
she's so determined. There's so many spirits stories that raise our spirits and help us do beautiful things in the world, if we pay attention to that. But you're right, you were adopted into our community. So, which naturally happens when you hang around us long enough. And I'm glad that you accepted this adoption.
Oh, I love it. I love you. I love the Chaldean Center. I am so grateful that it's the only one in the country, and hopefully it branches out, and that there's more. I know we're over on time, so but I want to say thank you so much. Your work and every group that is involved with this, it's very important what you're doing to raise awareness and to help open people's minds and hearts to the love of all of it. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Maybe we'll have you help us branch it out in your state.
Oh, absolutely.
Okay.
We're
Well,
the first interview.
thank you. Thank you so much, Gethen, for joining us today. Thank you, everybody, for watching. I hope this was an inspiration. It was inspirational very much. It always is when I speak with you. Um,
Absolutely.
have a wonderful day. Thank you,
You
everyone.
too. Take care. Bye.
Bye bye.